hospitals, and charitable organizations. About 2,000 well-to-do Jews financed a free canteen, a clinic, a drugstore, and tuberculosis sanatorium. Kharkov community helped victims of pogroms in other cities. In Kharkov itself, the Jewish pogroms never happened. The city was developed and built in many respects thanks to the Jewish community. The Jewish architects have made a valuable contribution to the city development. The first building erected in Kharkov under the project of Adolf Minkus was the principal house of the province. Unfortunately, it was completely destroyed during the war, but a great number of others have remained. The main city street, Sumskaya, is decorated with the buildings of an outstanding architect, Alexander Ginsburg. The total quantity of his constructions reaches 120. After the war, Ginsburg has been elected to be a chairman of the Jewish community. He rendered assistance in the formation of Israel state. For this activity, he has been fired and left without means of living. He has been slandered by the authorities. His heart didn't pass this ordeal, and Ginsburg has died soon, leaving us a beautiful architectural works, 20 of which belong to the monuments of architecture. Also, there are 11 buildings of Moshe Dikansky in the list of Kharkov monuments of architecture. An appreciable contribution to Kharkov architecture was made by Moshe Kompaniets, Boris Yershkovich, Moshe Galitinsky, Arkady Langman, brothers Rotenberg, Viktor Estrovich. At various times, about 200 Jewish architects worked in Kharkov. 40 of them were the authors of 100 buildings, which were entered in the National Register of Monuments of Architecture. Not everything survived till nowadays. The city was strongly destroyed during the war. The war has changed not only the image of Kharkov, but also the national structure of its population. Close to the war, the population of Jews in Kharkov reached 150,000, and after the war, only several hundreds left. Fortunately, a large part of Jewish population that worked at large enterprises was able to survive since the factories were evacuated first of all. Some Jews went to the front. Not more than 10–15,000 of Jews, basically old men, women, and children, remained in the city. As soon as fascists had invaded Kharkov, they immediately started registration of the population, and the Jews were written down in the special yellow sheets. Those who found oneself in these yellow lists were ordered to move immediately to barracks of machine tool factory in the city suburb to the Jewish ghetto. The way to the ghetto lay along the longest street of Kharkov, namely the 18-kilometer long Moskovsky Avenue.
Дорога была очень длинная, очень страшная. По обе стороны, значит, мы прошли по Московскому
The way
проспекту.
to ghetto barracks was frightful. On the sides of the road there were people standing. Some of them were just watching, some were terrified, but also there were those who rejoiced.
Ну и вот
I
по
heard
обе
one man
стороны
said,
стояли люди.
I lived a long
Ну,
time,
одни
but I have
были
never seen
настроены
such a horror.
как-то
They were taking
более
away our
терпимо,
clothing,
другие
which was good
враждебно.
enough to
Ну, в
wear.
общем,
They
по-разному.
tore off our
Ну, вот
fur coats,
такой
and it
разговор
was freezing
запомнился
cold.
мне. Стоит молодой мужик и говорит, что, значит, вот, столько лет ждал, значит, вот, дождался, вот, голодомор был, там погибли у него родственники. Да, и вот теперь, значит, вот я дождался возмездия. Ну, и тут же стоит пожилой мужчина и говорит, дурак ты, дурак. А я, говорит, вот уже прожил столько лет, говорит, уже там 60 или 70, и такого ужаса никогда не видел. По дороге немцы встречали, там будки стояли, загоняли стариков, обрезали
German
бороды,
fascist aggressors
фотографировали.
were mocking at old
Вот,
men.
бросали
They even cut
камнями,
their
срывали
beards off.
платки. Население просто, не немцы. Снимали у кого шубы хорошие там или что, а мороз-то сильный был. Ну, вот так мы и шли.
Right there, in the
Женщина
middle of the road, one woman
рожала
started
на
giving
дороге,
birth.
упала, стала
She
рожать,
had
родила
twins.
двойню.
All of a sudden, a German
Тут же
soldier
немцы
came up
штыком закололи
and
и
stabbed
детей,
them
и
and
её.
their mother to
В
death.
общем,
That
путь был
was the way.
не розовыми фиалками, в общем, очень тяжело.
Нарешті ті, хто війшов, опинилися.
Those who went through turned out to be at ghetto barracks. At that point, they realized they were gonna be killed. Every day, people were taken away from ghetto. Just a few kilometers, and Jews were taken to Drobetsky Yar. Thousands of Jews were killed, and only a few were saved by miracle. But those few were witnesses to murder of all their families. Those who were left alive sorted out clothes of the dead. This kept them living and waiting their last moment. I wanted to survive really bad. Old man who was sorting clothes next to me have said, "Jump into a car, son, so Germans can't see you, and we'll cover you with their clothes." There was another kid who jumped with me. I was 16 years old when it happened. It is in Kharkov just after liberation in 1943, the first in the history of the World War II court process over fascist criminals has taken place. The photographs and pictures of the murdering of Kharkov Jews have been shown during this process. Nevertheless, the Soviet authorities preferred to forget about victims of Drobetsky Yar. It took half a century of struggle to have a right to immortalize the memory of innocently deceased with dignity, as well as for the right to carve on a gravestone monument the word Jews instead of simple, peaceful Soviet citizens. The memorial complex in Drobetsky Yar is a monumental ensemble of human sorrow. It is unique even on a European scale. The memorial was under construction for more than 10 years, and the money for building was collected by the whole world. During construction period, the Jewish public organization Drobetsky Yar established names of victims, examined archives, searched for escaped witnesses of the events, and for those who, risking their own lives, rescued Jews. Almost complete list of more than 16,000 victims of Drobetsky Yar appeared as a result of this work. The Israeli Holocaust Martyrs and Heroes Remembrance Authority Yad Vashem awarded a title, Righteous Among the Nations, to about 100 citizens of Ukraine for the rescue of Jews in days of the Holocaust. Every year in December, the Kharkov Jews gather on the place of the former ghetto and go to the memorial at Slobozhanskiy Yar. Hundreds of standing people listen to the list of names of their deceased tribesmen and pray for the returning of their souls to Eretz Israel in Messiah times. After the war, the Jews who have escaped the Holocaust have started to come back to Kharkov. In 1945, the religious community has reappeared, but immediately fell under the rigid pressure of authorities. Well-known Kharkov Jews were accused in cosmopolitanism. Jewish writers and critics were expelled from the Union of Writers. Because of the symphony Babi Yar, Dmitry Klebanov was expelled from the Union of Composers. Klebanov's students suffered for the use of Hasidic tunes in his music. In the year 1950, a non-disclosed restriction on admission of Jews to the universities was introduced. In the year 1953, the persecution and mass arrest of Jewish doctors have begun. In 1958, 20 Minyans were tracked down in Kharkov and dispersed. And in 1959, a wave of arrests for making matzah has happened. But Jews stood firm and adapted to the conditions, and despite everything continued to form a scientific and cultural elite of Kharkov. By the end of the 70s, the number of Kharkov Jews was about 90,000 people. But as soon as Iron Curtain has risen a little, Jews began to emigrate in mass to United States and Israel. But in the process of decrease of the Jewish population, the Jewish organizations blossomed more and more. The Israeli Cultural Center and the Jewish agency Sachnut, the Eastern Ukrainian branch of International Solomon University, the Scientific Complex Solomon Education and Technological Lyceum, the Jewish Community Center Beit Dan, the Kharkov Regional Welfare Fund Hesed Shara Tikve, the Regional Committee Slobozhanskiy Yar and the Holocaust Museum, the Jewish Students Club Gilel, Shalavim, the Jewish School of General Education, American Jewish United Distributing Committee joined, World Org and Jewish Community Orthodox Union have opened the doors to all Jews of Kharkov. There is also an excellent kosher restaurant, Shalom, in Kharkov. So, Kharkov still remains a very Jewish city. Kharkovians even have a special dialect in which there are a lot of Jewish words and expressions. An ordinary clothes hanger is called trample in honor of the Jewish owner of a fashionable in before last century ladies' store, and a nose is called just schnobel. In addition, this city, with a population of more than 1.5 million, lives under community laws where everyone knows everybody and about everybody. This is our city. The majority of Kharkovians consider Israel as their second home, since, after all, about 30,000 of our former compatriots live there, and all of them are either our friends or relatives. This is our Kharkov, a well-educated, tolerant, unhurried city at the turn of civilization and nations. A very special city with unique image and with obviously apparent Jewish features.